by one senator, Cherargei, that is Samson Cherargei, that's the Nandi senator, who says that any Kenya Kwanza member of parliament who shall vote against the Finance Bill 2023 should face the full force of the party disciplinary mechanisms. Party position is supreme in any democracy. Just before we bring in Mr. Kigole, Edwin, Justin, you hear exactly what that is. That party is supreme in any democracy, that we move as a party. So whatever we say stays.
Let me remind Kenyans that political parties are just vehicles, but you're Kenyan first, all said and done. What is the interest of the Kenyans that you're representing? But it has all been skewed by the fact that many of our leaders or people in politics or people who hold elective positions were funded by a master. So now the master is coming to cash in on the money he gave them. So that is why they have the voice or the courage to say party stand is important than what the Kenyans are saying.
Not the very first time that we are saying this, we know that's how parties in the country run. You're essentially funded by one who essentially then gets you in the movement. But is it only that it's because this time we have a strong opposition that has really opposed this bill to the point now that the government in place really has to look for ways to run their businesses? That's the only difference. Because Justin, you and I have been in this country for quite a long time. I mean, we've seen controversial bills that go to the National House and pass, but we never see the level of public participation and demonstrations in this country in the process for public participation. Is it because now there's an opposition in government that is essentially pushing the government to act, to prove?
No, I think the difference is that Kenya Kwanza or the executive has exposed themselves more, which is a good thing. There have been other financial bills, but we've never gotten to analyze them as the way we've analyzed this one.
What do you think is the difference with how we've analyzed this one this time around?
It's the fact that it has been brought to us, the Kenyans. The other one is just in passing. It's never given the attention.
Yes.
It's never given the limelight.
Yes.
It's never it's controversial, but it's never seen or discussed.
Yes.
Many a times Uhuru Kenyatta used to avoid the conversation, but now William Ruto and Gigathi are speaking about it.
Sorry.
And it's bringing the curiosity
Yes.
to Kenyans. They're like, hey, wait a minute, what is this thing they're telling us about? So I think, one, they've done a good thing, taking it out there to the citizen. Of course, it is our constitutional right to have the conversation, but theirs is overexposed, and that is why we are criticizing it. But they knew that once they take it out to the public, the feedback would have been yes or no. So I wonder why they are now trying to force our MPs or their MPs to pass it without considering the voice of the people. Remember, a lot of money has been used in the public participation.
Yes.
They were in hotels around the country, you know, the mileage, they pay DMs. Yet they're saying in this country there is no money. So what was the purpose of the public participation? Spending the Kenyans' money, yet you're saying there's no money, and then you tell us it doesn't make sense. They would have just passed it then without even involving the Kenyans.
Yes. Justin, I'll be coming back to you because it's the same question that I keep on asking every other person that I sit with, that is it some sort of unpreparedness from the president? Because if indeed you knew that this is exactly what you're going to do, you'd have liked to think that the first people to convince would have been your members of parliament, not at this stage, at the stage of drafting this particular bill, because indeed you had all the time, you had all the resources to sit with them and say that this is how we are going to move. So that once you come outside here, you speak with one voice, as the voice of the government. Let me then bring in Mr. Kigole at this point. Mr. Kigole Edwin, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. It is my pleasure to join you this morning and to our viewers as well.
Fantastic. So I just want to start with this particular quote by one Senator Samson Cherargei, who's saying that any Kenya Kwanza allied member of parliament who votes against the Finance Bill 2023 then come Thursday should go through party disciplinary mechanisms. And in fact, he's saying that the party is supreme when it comes to these particular issues. Do you agree, Mr. Kigole?
Thank you. In my political science class, we came across the subject of diplomacy. And when we talk about diplomacy, there are various ways in which diplomacy is achieved. And one of the ways is through negotiation. Another way is through threats and concessions. So if now the Kenya Kwanza government have reached a point where they have to use, threats of sanctions of errant members who will probably vote against the bill, then that is where they are. But then in a moving and working democracy, when you look at the Article 32 of our Kenya Constitution, which provides for, freedom of belief, opinion, every elected leader has to represent their constituencies. And when a leader, for instance, we had a number of MPs from Central Kenya, in particular, Kiambu County, who says, that their constituents do not support the bill, and they have given them express instructions to vote against the bill. So in the end, it's about whom am I fighting for and who took me to parliament. Yes, I used a vehicle, but who fueled the vehicle? Who provided the means, like for me to get to parliament? It is my electorate. In the end, I am answerable to the electorate much as I am answerable to my political party.
Yes.
And for Senator Cherargei to come out with those, some sort of threatening words, it means the bill is not as popular as one would want. To use of threats or promising sanctions to members who will be voting against the bill. So this bill, it might have some good ideas in the long run, but the question is, what is this bill promising immediately? It is promising a lot of pain to Kenyans. It is going to make the cost of living unbearable to most of Kenyans. And that's why the Kenya Kwanza government is also wary that members of parliament could resort to voting against it, which I do not believe is the case, because they are likely to vote as the party wants them to.
Mr. Kigoli, there's another question that I put to Justine Wamai in the studio shortly on it's not just Senator Cherargei who's speaking about this. I mean, this weekend, you and I were treated to that drama of the deputy president saying, well, any member of parliament who opposes the finance bill 2023, their constituents will not get votes, because they're saying, well, this bill promises to actually develop their constituencies. Also saying, well, he doesn't understand why any other governor in the country as well should oppose this particular bill. It's not just him. I want to point you out to the sentiments of the president, who's saying, well, he's going to watch closely. He didn't come out saying, well, this is the punishment that we're going to have to do, just like Senator Cherargei said. He said he is going to watch closely and see who that member of parliament is within the Kenya Kwanza government who's going to vote against the wishes of majority of Kenyans. That is employment, development, reducing the cost of living, and all those promises that he came in with. Those sentiments, right there, Mr. Kigoli, can we call them indiscipline or recklessness within the party, because the constitutional process for that particular bill hasn't been completed yet?
The constitutional process is already underway, but it has to culminate in the National Assembly or Parliament, so to speak. But then when I hear my president coming out to say he's going to watch closely as to how members will be voting with possible consequences for those who will be opposing the bill, it takes me aback, because look, the president swore to serve all Kenyans, and independent experts are saying that this bill is going to have more damage than the good it is bringing. Because look, every employer is going to contribute 3% to the housing levy, much as their staff are contributing. So the private sector is going to take austerity measures in terms of the workforce. And if you have 100 staff and you're supposed to contribute 3% of their salaries on every staff, companies will go into downsizing, and downsizing means many people are going to be laid off,
yes.
And that is just going to compound the crisis of the cost of living as it is. Times are hard, and the least we can do, and the least the government can do, is to cushion Kenyans so that we are able to sail through these storms. But if we introduce a raft of changes, too many at the same time, the people.
Yes, we lost him momentarily there. Hopefully, I will have you back again, Mr. Kigoli, but I've got your point. The question then is, who is going to stop them, Justine? Because the opposition is telling them, stop. In fact, now, more than ever, the opposition now in this particular conversation, for political ultimatums, they look like they're the ones who are politically correct. They're saying, let the process go through. Do not tell us what to do. Let the people decide. But then the question that I want to ask you outright, Justine, is this a rigged process already? Can we say that the Kenya Kwanza government has already rigged the process of the Finance Bill 2023?
I can say it seems like it's rigged.
Yes, yes.
Remember the president, it's good to look at context. Where he started his politics was, chama cha mama na baba.
Yes.
So where Chama said something, you do what Chama is saying. So he's still hung up there. He's thinking that Kenyans of that decade are the ones who are here now. He's forgetting that there's so much information that Kenyans know.
Yes.
He's forgetting that he said he was running on the bottom-up ideology. The Mama Mboga is asking, if you add mobile transfer excess duty from 12% to 15%, but you reduce bank charges excess duty from 20 to 13%. So who are you serving? Mama Mbogas and Auto Boda Boda use M-Pesa more than bank accounts, So already he seems like his priorities are mismatched according to how he got into power.
Yes.
Remember, he has not apologized to Mama Mbogas that he never gave them jobs. He used to say that utapatiwa makazi. People used to say, where is that Mama Mboga mtu wa boda boda in cabinet? He failed to deliver on that. Now he's pushing them further into poverty. So who will stop them? Actually, I'm afraid to say I don't know who will stop them. I don't know, because from where they sit, they seem to be the end to everything. And I blame the citizens. They lost their voice. Simba, it's good to also focus on what you've done to get yourself here.
Is it easier to blame the citizens in this conversation because the citizens, Justine, voted in leaders who they thought are going to represent their views? Is that not why we have members of parliament sitting in our house, that we're paying with our money and heavily at that?
The citizens voted and didn't vote. Remember, 8 million Kenyans never voted.
Yes.
And then the others who voted, they had this transactional kind of relationship.
Yes.
You've given me money, you've mobilized, I'm eating my money, I'm going to vote for you.
Yes.
They forgot the strategic relationship of it, that this is a journey that you're moving for the next 5 years together. So they lost their voice then, due to the transactional relationship they chose to eat money. And I'm not saying all citizens, but let me tell you, Simba, I've met 3 types of Kenyans on the campaign trail. There's one, those who fund political parties for policy influence. Then there are these others you meet on the ground, the Mama Mbogas. Those ones, when you ask them who is the best candidate, they'll tell you Fulani because he fueled my motorcycle, they bought my watermelon. For them, their interest was, or rather their needs were satisfied at that point.
Yes.
Then there's the middle class who we never find on the campaign trail.
Yes.
They never vote, they never even make a decision to be online and engage in such a conversation. For them, they feel that everything is going well. Now when their employer cuts them down, because now these taxes are so heavy for the employer, and the purposes of private sector is profits, that is when they'll realize that, you know what, my health insurance will not cater for me. Politics is the only way. Politics and leadership. We need to get ourselves involved. So I'm not looking for the easier way out, blaming the citizen, but to be very honest, the citizens have brought this upon themselves.
Yes, I'll be getting back to you on that, because then it looks as if now we can look for somebody to blame now because there's an avenue for that. Because I think both sides are representing their views, and it's for the very first time now that we can actually sit and engage and say, well, what is the opposition saying? What is the government saying? And what are we saying? But then the only way that you and I can speak is through the members of parliament. The members of parliament who have been rigged. You can say rigged now.
Yes.
So is it then not okay for you to turn around and say, well, guys, we have to blame ourselves? How can we get a member of parliament out of office for somebody who's already been told, we give you cover if you indeed then support our motion?
Well, I think we are at a crossroads.
Yes.
But the beauty of it is that it is a learning process.
Yes.
And that's the same challenge I'm giving government. We know they're human, man is to error.
Yes.
They need to accept and say, well, we tried this approach and Kenyans have refused. Let's do what they're saying.
Yes.
Let me tell you, many Kenyans are saying, why are you giving us a house to sleep in instead of industries to work in? They need to relate to the Kenyan, the common mwananchi. There is so much challenges. People are going through a lot, Simba. But this government seems to feel like they no longer care about the Kenyan. I want to ask the deputy president. He's saying that they found dilapidated coffers and no money. Yet the senators in Kenya Kwanza are going around telling us that all of them, whether you're in executive, legislature, judiciary,
yes,
you're entitled to a 30 million mortgage. Meaning they took that mortgage. Why couldn't this money be used in the housing fund, whatever project then, if they were really genuine about helping Kenyans? That is why I dare say that this project is vendor driven. If you ask me, public-private partnership, you incur the risks, you incur the losses, you get the profits together. But here's a developer coming, given prime land, free, given tax incentives on chuma and cement and everything.
Yes.
And he's assured that his house is going to be bought. You get? So this investor is going to benefit. That is why I'm saying there's something that is happening here, that Kenyans are going to lose money,
yes,
and the government is not being open.
Yes.
Number two, we've always had the problem of debt. Do you know why it came? Look at Expressway. We never hired our own engineers. We never used our own local, construction machines and everything. So this guy came, they had the project, they left. We never saw that someone who was hired as an engineer, or 100 of them, were able to pay income tax. The chumas that were used were not Kenyan. If they were Kenyan, the chumas would have been that these people are paying corporate tax. The cement, the same. But now everything was imported, and then now we have a structure here, we can't pay for it. So it goes back to how is Kenya? What is the interest of Kenya as a country in this PPP? But unfortunately, our leaders are looking out for their interests. And I always challenge them, Simba, because many of them are not creative in wealth creation. What they'll do, the money they'll get the kickback, they'll go build a flat or apartments. Sadly, the people they're expecting, who are Kenyans, to go be tenants, do not have the purchasing power. So we might end up having those ghost towns we see even in China and everywhere else. People having moved from industries to other sectors. So I want this government to remember how they got into power through the idea of Mama Mboga and Mutu wa Boda Boda. They need to also tell us that you're telling us that you're giving us fertilizers, incentives. They said they're giving them to 12 priority counties. So many Kenyans never even saw these fertilizers. Now they're telling us that they're going to reclassify fertilizer and pest control from zero rated to exempt VAT supplies. Meaning fertilizer will go up. We are not even full. Cost of food is going up. So this government has misplaced priorities. They do not care what Kenyans are saying. I mean, it's just a mess.
Pretty much. Mr. Kigole, just before I come back to Justine Wamai on that particular point now on exactly then what next, because there's mere coalition is saying, well, we're going to give you an alternative or a route to have this bill not go through Parliament Thursday. Mr. Kigole, I asked her this question just before you came in, and this was the question. Did you read unpreparedness from the president? Because if indeed he wanted to speak as the voice of the government, then the first people he would have convinced in this conversation for the finance bill were Kenya Kwanza allied members of parliament. Now, it looks as if the split that was seen in government, or this bad feelings that were seen within the government, or this communications that we're getting here from Senator Cherargei is because probably is read that indeed within the government, there are still some people who are opposed to this finance bill.
Let me come in by saying that when the president talks about the independence of police, when he talks about the independence of judiciary, he should also mean the independence of the legislature. There is clear separation of powers in our constitution. And when the president says his eyes are going to be traded on MPs, how they'll be voting, it means there is interference by the executive in the functioning of parliament in discharging its duties. Because the president must let MPs ventilate on bills and motions that are coming to the floor of the House without an external eye, so that Parliament is able to legislate, oversight, and represent without worrying that the president is in on what we are doing.
Mr. Kigole, if you may allow me, Mr. Kigole, if you may allow me jump in on that, is that the same thing for party politics as well? Because you see what Senator Cherargei there is saying, well, we know what the Constitution says about the powers of the legislature and separation of powers within those three arms of government, but what about within the party? That's what they're saying, that within the party, you gotta support party politics. And the president belongs to a party. UDA is a party, is a majority party within the Kenya Kwanza government. And Senator Cherargei is saying, well, fine, you might be a member of parliament, good, but you are a member to the UDA party and you got to play party politics. We're going to watch you and see exactly where you go. So